Okay, everybody, this video is not for you. It's not for you. It's not for you or for you. It's for me. I just got done watching My Adventures with Superman, and I'm late putting out this video. Because I've been doing video game reviews, and video game reviews are hard. They're like 20 plus hours, and I work a full-time job. But nonetheless, I gotta get in this and tell you guys about Superman. There's nothing in this. There's nothing. Oh god. Okay, so for like the last decade, or probably even longer than that, Superman's been kind of portrayed as like a villain. Like, ooh, what if Superman went bad? Or not only that, but it's been kind of a joke, or people like to say, there's nobody that's that good. Or people even go as far as to be like, Superman being that good is just boring, and there's no point, there's no story that can be made from that. And it's been kind of heartbreaking, honestly. I mean, like, I grew up having this VHS tape of Superman, and I'm like old Superman, back where they talked about how he could leap over buildings in a single bound or be faster than a speeding bullet. I mean, I remember back in those cartoons that like Superman just helped people. That Superman's biggest fight was whenever he had to fight a gorilla. And growing up back then and watching that Superman and growing up and loving Star Wars and these things, it really was about just being good versus evil. And sure, Superman later on got these crazy powerful villains, but I always loved the idea of the Boy Scout. And it seems like in recent media, that Boy Scout became a meme and was just like they're always winking and making jokes about Superman being the Boy Scout. So when My Adventures with Superman came out, I wasn't that excited for it. Honestly, it's probably a big reason why I put this video off, because I didn't finish watching it till recently. I saw the anime aesthetics, and Harley Quinn was super popular on HBO, or well, I guess we call Max now, and I just assumed, or I was just ready to be disappointed again. Lo and behold, how wrong I was. Oh my gosh, it's so great to see, like okay, I'm fanboying over myself right now, but Superman, the first thing we see him do is save a cat out of a tree. And I know it's cliche and generic, but that's Superman. Like, he goes out of his way to help anyone and anything, and he's super humble about it. Back when the MCU was in like phase 1, or even Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, I still love the parts where superheroes are just saving people, or just doing good for others. And now everything's divulged and turned into this massive cosmic event where it's all about who's gonna fight who and who's gonna team up with another person. It's really cool and fan service, but at its core, what makes a superhero is someone who wants to go out of their way and help. And this show does two things to respect that. The first one being, well, they don't make fun of it. They don't make any nods. They don't take, how many times you've watched something and they said a supervillain's name, or a superhero comes up with their own name and they're all like, he couldn't have chosen a better name? Like, the easiest way to a joke, like making fun of the origin of the character because their name doesn't take place in our modern time or whatever. Well, they don't do that here. Everything's just accepted. The source material is just accepted and carried on all the way to his underwear that he wears outside of his suit. The second part is that they've taken the golden silver age of Superman, they've kind of combined it into one, and then they modernized it, and everything about it stays true to his character. Even the atmosphere and the surroundings. Metropolis is always shown in the broad daylight, or in a beautiful like orange sunlight that bathes the scene. There's something that's always about like this optimism that's behind everything in the show. I mentioned it was like an anime where you can tell there's some anime influences in there with their big eyes, and this cutscene where Superman transforms into his suit like he's Sailor Moon. But for the most part, it is like a Saturday morning cartoon, and it has its moments with like it caters to the older audience because it knows who's watching these shows, but it keeps a consistent tone. It's lighthearted and funny. It's very cartoony and charming. And when it needs to get serious or sad or emotional, it stays that way. It never makes fun of itself. It understands its own realm, and it sticks to it, which is really kind of meta, because the whole show is about Clark trying to figure out who he is. Quite literally, he doesn't know where he's from. He doesn't understand what he is. And even though I feel like Superman's origin story is something that every single person on this planet probably knows, the show portrays it in a way as if we've never been told it, and we're seeing it from Clark's point of view, or Superman's point of view. And even like the Kryptonians speak a different language, so we can't understand it. There's no translation for the audience, so we're as much in the dark as Superman is.
What's he saying?
So we are learning as he's learning. It was nice. It was kind of refreshing to have this like different take on it, even though everything else was more of the same. This part of Superman was new and intriguing, and I wanted to watch him solve this mystery of himself. And because this is kind of a self-discovery journey, Superman hasn't had time to fully integrate himself into his powers. He's learning about his limits just as much as we're learning about his powers. And as he's learning about all this stuff, he questions and doubts who he is or what purpose he has, but sticks to that fundamental nature of what he was raised on, being that Boy Scout that everyone loves to make fun of him for. But in this show, it's what we all love him for. And it's the reason why Lois Lane falls in love with him. And that's probably my favorite thing, is how Lois likes Clark Kent. She didn't like Superman. She loved Clark Kent, and she loved Clark Kent because he was a nice guy, because he was the type of person that would go out of his way for people, and he does things just out of the kindness of his heart. She even goes out of the way to say that, like, there's no way you could be Superman because you're too nice. No one with those types of powers would be as nice as you are, Clark. And I think that's just like amazing, and that's what makes Superman Superman. And there's just these small things that speak so loudly. It's his actions that speak for themselves. In the second episode where he's fighting the villain and the villain wants to kill him, and we're shown early on in the series that there's going to be superpowered people who are going to go out of their way to go into a dark place really soon. Superman says, "I didn't come here to fight you. I came here to help you." That's, to me, is like a breath of fresh air. Especially, it brought back so many nostalgic memories, and it reminded me, sorry, I'm getting a little personal here, but it reminded me like why I named my channel what I did, and why like I do my best to be as good of a person as possible, is because I used to watch things like that type of Superman, that type of person who didn't show up to just beat up the bad guy and throw him in jail, but to figure out what's wrong and to try to help and save everyone, including the person who's causing the problems, because he has the powers to do so. He has the powers to take that punishment, and he doesn't use it to overpower people. He uses it to shield them. The cast and side characters, supporting or not, are so great. They all do their part to lend to the story. Everything is to make the plot go forward or to help characters progress in their own way. I love Lois Lane and how quirky she is and how much more aggressive she is about things and ambitious. And it's complemented so well with how kind Clark is and how much he just wants to help and support her in those ways. So they have a lot of chemistry and they mix really well. Jimmy Olsen is fantastic. It's funny how he's got this weird, quirky side. Again, I think it helps a lot because this is a cartoon, but he makes so many references to old comic books, like a lot of references to the old Jimmy Olsen comic books, and I couldn't catch most of them. The fact that I was able to catch like 2 of them, I was proud of myself. The rest I was reading about, and I was like, oh, I didn't even realize he said that. Now, I know this isn't my usual type of reviewing and stuff like that. This was honestly just me wanting to talk about this show, getting it out there, and whoever wants to listen to me fanboy. I did put a little bit of critical analysis in there over it, but I guess I was more or less talking about Superman himself and how happy I was to see such a thing like this. The show is fantastic, and I do recommend anyone to go see it. If you know nothing about Superman, this is a great introduction into Superman. And if you are a huge Superman fan yourself, this is true to who he is and what his character means. And yes, maybe I'm a little biased in what I have to say, but the plot is really well done. The characters are solid, and you gotta go check it out for yourself. I gotta give My Adventures with Superman a 9 out of 10. For your 101 on movie reviews and more, check out your digital hero. Until next time, play nice.